sorry, some unexpected technical difficulties with the captioning, so I will try that again.
Hi, Chris. We're just about to get started.
Yep. Great. Sorry, I didn't email any comments up.
That's okay.
No
Thank
problem.
you for being here. We're just going to ask people to mute and stop their videos until they're actually speaking, and we will introduce each speaker in turn. David and I are co-facilitating.
Okay, and I'm just going to talk sort of about income inequality and the role of our university in that sort of public health sense. Is that all right? Does that help?
That's perfect.
Great.
Thank you. Hello and welcome everyone to today's press conference on UVM's values crisis. My name is Helen Scott. I'm a professor of English, department representative for United Academics, and also vice president in the Vermont State Labor Council, AFL-CIO, representing the American Federation of Teachers. I will be your co-facilitator today.
Hi, thank you all for coming. I'm David Feuerzeug, the other co-facilitator, professor of music, and also a vice president for the State Labor Council, AFL-CIO. Before we get to our main speakers, I want to lay out some basic financial facts. President Garamella is crying poverty, while UVM is sitting on an endowment of $563 million. He's crying crisis while leaving untouched a rainy day fund of $34 million and an additional $66 million in unrestricted reserves in the UVM Foundation. President Garamella is crying pandemic after having accepted $56 million in emergency COVID relief funding, much of that allocated by the Vermont legislature with the understanding that it would protect campus jobs. This administration is imposing austerity measures while paying $95 million for a new sports arena, $23 million in executive pay, including lavish extras like a $235,000 bonus for the head basketball coach in 2020. Just this one bonus, that's a drop in the bucket of UVM's excessive VIP compensation, is far more than the combined salaries of 3 full-time lecturers recently laid off in the College of Arts and Sciences due to a supposed budget crisis. Administrators claim that the College of Arts and Sciences has an $8 million budget deficit. But the simple financial fact is that the college brings in more in tuition than it spends, contributing a net surplus that supports other programs at UVM to the tune of $7 million per year. This reality is almost exactly the reverse of the college's fictitious, manufactured, so-called deficit. Before coming here, President Garamella said, UVM is a great school. I'm not coming to fix something that's broken, end quote. Just this November, he said, quote, the state of UVM's finances is sound, and announced that the university's net position had increased by $24 million year over year. So I'm confused. Eliminating vibrant departments and productive faculty are not the actions of a healthy school. Excessive executive pay and lavish bonuses are not the actions of a financially strapped one. The question is this: is UVM, as President Garamella so recently said, financially sound and unbroken? Or has his administration broken it? We have a diverse roster of speakers to help us with this question. And first up is Associate Professor of French, Dr. Megan Emery.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I am very pleased to be here. As David first said, I'm an associate professor of French and a member of UVM United Against the Cuts. I'm here to speak to the values crisis that we are experiencing at UVM. And I must first speak to the proposed humanities program terminations in the College of Arts and Sciences. These programs provide a kind of readiness that our society and world community need today, perhaps more than ever, as we face the onset of climate change and the likely conflicts that mass immigrations will engender. And it's not even clear that the cuts lead to any real gains. Course enrollments for our 3 non-renewed senior lecturers reached into the 500s this past year alone. And these cuts don't only affect us. Top administrators in the US National Science Foundation have similarly expressed shock over the announced closure of UVM's geology department and its, quote, model graduate program. They will also have a devastating impact on our state. See the statements by a respected former South Burlington School District Superintendent John Everett, who decries the loss of the special education major. Stephen Perkins, the executive director of the Vermont Historical Society, and the executive director of the Humanities Council, Christopher Kaufman, who warns, if the insurrection of January 6th taught us anything, it should be that we must think differently to build a healthy society. This leads me to my second point, our common ground principles, which is our value statement that the faculty discussed and developed over a thoughtful years-long process. At the same time that the president seeks reorganization and elimination, he publicly touts UVM's cross-disciplinary courses in the humanities, which will not long survive if the administration continues to cut disciplines and eliminate the faculty who teach in them. Institutional disinvestment undermines faculty and student recruitment, retention, and diversity. For example, recent losses from our faculty ranks include the accomplished African-American poet Major Jackson, and will soon include UVM's only woman physicist, Madalena Furis. So we must understand that the president's phrase, multidisciplinary courses, is a code word not for streamlining, but for downsizing. Not for in-depth inquiry into cross-curricular study, but for a diminished faculty. What has transpired over the past 10 months has been an all-out attack on our institutional values. Specifically, there has been misinformation and retribution and a callousness that has had a chilling effect. Faculty and students have been reproached by university leaders who warn them not to engage with others, or encourage their peers to use their voices, or act in a way that conveys their lack of confidence in the current administration. Faculty, traumatized by administrators' actions, refrain from writing an email or exposing their views out of fear of retaliation, including the loss of their job or program. Lest we forget, we are a teaching and research institution where we seek to create and further knowledge by daring to ask questions. This, combined with what I know of the student experience, gives rise to concern over a clear absence of care in this time of austerity. On top of the threat to cut lecturers' salaries by 25%, the abrupt closure of our top quality children's campus school and non-renewal of contracts of accomplished and popular senior lecturers, there's the fact that it took outcries from nearly 4,000 signatories on a petition drafted by students, and the threat of lawsuits from parents, for our president to finally act and moderate an ill-thought-out policy that led to student suspensions. That's not leadership. That's why we have no confidence in this president. He either makes rash policy decisions without considering the impact, or is too slow to act when action is required. Where is our care, our respect for diversity, our dedication to problem solving and communication? This is a pattern. It is not par for the course here at the University of Vermont. Something is terribly awry. My third and final point has to do with the lack of transparent budget discussions. Faculty are very concerned about UVM's budgetary practices and lack of transparency regarding the UVM Foundation. Thanks to faculty research, we learned that, contrary to the administration's claims, the College of Arts and Sciences is not a financial drain on the university. Rather, the subvention algorithm within the IBB budget model has siphoned off money from CAS tuition revenues. As a structural driver, IBB has also driven a wedge between our students studying the environment in CAS and Rubenstein. And if this moves forward, the two shall never mix. So much for multidisciplinarity. How can this be? Cross-cultural collaborations have long been valued here at the University of Vermont and have established our reputation. I have yet to hear a UVM administrator or financial officer clarify what exactly the various algorithms in the university's incentive-based budget model can tell us about our budget. It's not clear to me that anyone really knows. The terrible academic cost of austerity is particularly untenable at a time in which the UVM Foundation is, as faculty research again recently discovered, diverting millions of unrestricted donation dollars away from academics. Untenable when we see a move to disinvest in basic sciences and problem-based research and dismantle programs like geology and physics and invest in industry-funded applied research with all the problematic strings attached. Untenable when we have prize-winning poets and physicists leaving our institution, swept away by university recruiters who, upon hearing word of our cuts, are at the doors and on the phone, wooing away our most accomplished faculty. How this gets us to the Carnegie Research One designation, as is the ambition of our president, is a mystery. This simply doesn't follow. So what are we to conclude from this lack of budgetary transparency and attacks on faculty and curricular diversity, faculty governance, and our common ground principles? The fact that these cuts fall in line with a vision and under a framework of institutional restructuring during a period of institutional crisis precipitated by the pandemic suggests that all of this is a strategic and blatant corporate tactic initiated by the UVM president. So the question is this: in a state of resulting chaos and increasing atmosphere of uncertainty, backstepping, and fear, are we to follow the people who put us here? Are we to entrust them with big decisions like academic restructuring? And more importantly, after all is said and done, will we have a viable university able to serve the state and attract students? After all of this, our conclusions are clear. The answer is no, and we declare no confidence.
Thank you so much, Megan. Our next speaker is Julie Roberts, President of United Academics, the faculty union at UVM.
Thank you, Helen, and good afternoon. I have been at UVM since 1994, and I have always felt the support and commitment to community here until now. You are hearing today some sobering facts and figures. Please pay attention to them. But what I want to share is the ongoing contexts and its effect on our community. I want to talk to you about community destruction, the kind that goes beyond what can be captured in the phrase poor morale. Poor morale can have many causes. The pandemic, changes to the institution that may or may not be needed. But what I'm speaking of goes far beyond that. It is a condition characterized by complete distrust and a multi-layered splitting into factions when unity is called for. I am not alone. In a survey created by United Academics, our faculty union, in January, the majority of our faculty members who responded stated that they would support a no confidence vote. 56% of faculty respondents felt job insecure, and roughly the same stated they were looking for jobs elsewhere. The reasons for this, I believe, are many, but fall squarely and directly from administrative decision-making that was not only unilateral, but done in ways that denied the humanity of the faculty and staff at UVM, such as we have never seen before. The hallmark of these decisions has been, in my view, that they have been fear-based, made quickly and without sufficient thought, and therefore have been reversed when fears were not realized. Here are some examples. In the late spring, many lecturers had their workloads and their pay reduced by 25% because the pandemic might reduce the need for courses, in spite of there being no indication of that reduction. It didn't happen, and the workloads and pay of almost all of those lecturers were reinstated 3 months later. Last June, the staff and faculty who are unrepresented by any union saw a pay reduction of 5%, again, in case of a budget shortfall that was not indicated then, and in fact never happened. This too was reversed several months later. On December 2nd, closures of departments, programs, majors, and minors were announced, including classics, religion, geology, and others. It was announced as a clear, decisive sentencing with no possibility of parole. This decision has not been reversed, and many faculties' jobs, with or without tenure, are still in danger. But indications are that the individual departments, programs, and in some cases faculty members are brokering alternative outcomes. In early November 2020, the provost announced a massive reorganization of UVM with implementation to begin in March 2021. Yes, that's now. Again, this was put forward as a done deal, with faculty input limited to an after-the-fact discussion of where do you think you might fit into this new order. This decision has not been reversed either, but has been relegated to a number of working groups with meager faculty inclusion and much secrecy. We await the verdict with concern. I'm not arguing against reorganization, but what we have here at UVM is reorganization at gunpoint. Finally, in December, 3 senior lecturers were told they were not being reappointed in the fall, an act that, despite administrative claims, amounts to a layoff. I argue that these job losses are performative. Certainly they save no money, and sadly these decisions have not been reversed. These 3 lecturers, after 20 plus years at UVM, remain collateral damage of a chaotic administrative process. My point, of course, is not to protest the reversal of bad decisions. It is instead to argue that the way these decisions were made, unilaterally, quickly, and without the support of financial data, are detrimental, even if they are later reversed, and cause serious harm to those that they are inflicted on and radiate outward into our community. The administration has said again and again that these decisions have been data-driven. The data we see is, in fact, that these decisions have been made in a haphazard way to create chaos and have resulted in a climate of fear and low morale. Humane, people-focused leadership takes into consideration the harm that decisions will cause and carefully weighs this harm against facts and numbers, not the baseless fear that a crisis may occur in the future. The result of quick, reactive, unilateral decisions is faculty who feel job insecure and are looking for work elsewhere. Staff who are also necessarily in doubt about the security of their jobs and the stability of their salaries, and ultimately students who do not know if the subjects they are passionate about will continue to be offered. The faculty. Okay, can I read one more sentence?
Please do.
The faculty that they have been mentored by will continue to be able to offer this mentorship, and whether this small, accessible university will continue to be the community they cherish. They deserve better, and this community deserves better. Thank you, and sorry I went over.
Thank you, Julie, and I'm sorry we had to cut you off from those very important points. Next, we're going to hear from Betsy Becker, Phi Beta Kappa Classics major, UVM class of 1964.
Good morning. As the organizers of this press conference stated, a flagship university must offer a wide range of educational options for Vermonters And I will also add for others who choose to attend. I will let those more familiar with finances address the misplaced budget priorities. I will speak first to the value of the liberal arts and in general, and then of classics specifically, as it has been such a big part of my life. I've always loved and supported my alma mater, and one of the things that made me especially proud was the diversity that UVM has historically espoused, both in its population and in its educational offerings. But the recent moves to diminish the humanities flies in the face of the diversity that the university continues to tout, as on some of the social media posts I've recently seen. And I do understand that STEM is important for what it brings to the university and the world. Why then, if science is so important, is the university letting geology fall by the wayside, even as its geologists are making international headlines for a sobering discovery about our warming planet? Is it that they only want to invest in science when it's marketable? It's commendable and important to offer professional education such as medicine, engineering, and business. But without the critical and analytical skills and values, which only the humanities and social sciences can provide, the doctors, engineers, and business people would be one-sided and stilted. And without basic research in the physical sciences, we will fail to understand and take care of the physical world we share. Simply put, the liberal arts teach us to be human. Additionally, in today's world, made smaller by technology, it is more important than ever to understand other cultures. We also need to know how to evaluate the information that STEM gives us and be able to express this information through the written word as well as orally. Simply put, only the humanities can teach us how to think analytically and express ourselves clearly. The liberal arts are the heart and soul of education. I found the following in a recent article in the blog bestcolleges.com about the value of a liberal arts education. 92% of executives said that American workers don't have the skills needed to succeed at their jobs. But the skill gap isn't just about technical knowledge. Nearly half of executives think workers need more soft skills like critical thinking and communication. While an employer can teach hard skills, it is much more difficult to train someone in soft skills. Liberal arts are the heart and soul of education and should not take a backseat to more practical fields, as the liberal arts uniquely prepare students for successful careers as well as for becoming lifelong learners. And I cannot leave out my first love, the classics, since it has been a part of my life for almost 60 years. I would not be who I am today, and I'm pretty happy with it, without my classics education and career. As stated by the classics department in a letter to alumni in 2019, classics is the historical core of the liberal arts. It holds an important place not only in UVM's academics, but in its own long tradition of the university as a whole. Note our name, Universitas Veritas Montes, University of the Green Mountain, and our motto, Studiis et Rebus Honestis, for studies and honest pursuits. The thought of losing this department leaves a hole in my soul. Let me close with something I found on a Facebook post, which sums things up nicely. At the entrance gate of a university in South Africa, the following message was posted for contemplation. Destroying any nation does not require the use of atomic bombs or the use of long-range missiles. It only requires the lowering the quality of education and allowing cheating in the examinations by the students. Patients die at the hands of such doctors. Buildings collapse at the hands of such engineers. Money is lost at the hands of such economists and accountants. Humanity dies at the hands of such religious scholars. Justice is lost at the hands of such judges. The collapse of education is the collapse of a nation. Thank you.
Thank you for those powerful words, Betsy. Our next speaker is Vermont State Senator Chris Pearson.
Well, thank you for having me. I am one of the senators here for Chittenden County and UVM graduate class of 95. I, throughout my time in Montpelier, and I've served for the better part of going on 15 years, I have focused a lot on income inequality, and more recently been thinking about the tie between thinking of income inequality as a public health crisis. We have to acknowledge at a time when the richest 0.1% have 17% of the stocks, when the richest 1% own half of the stocks, and the bottom half of us own only 0.7%. Our economy is in a crisis. When we look at the state of Vermont and recognize that the median household income here in Vermont is under $60,000, half of all of our homes, all the houses in Vermont are seeing incomes combined of under $60,000. We have to acknowledge that our economy is broken. So what does that have to do with UVM? Vermont's flagship institution of higher learning is more and more out of touch with the very community that it supports. President Garimella, as mentioned, and I don't want to pick on him other than he is the leader, he's earning a salary twice what we give President Biden. Would we suggest that we're not able to attract the best and the brightest to the White House? Consider the President Garimella's salary is 5 times what we have paid Dr. Levine, Commissioner of Public Health, to guide the state through the pandemic this last year. He earns a measly $160,000 or in that neighborhood. We have come from a time of public service. Commissioner Levine does a good job because he is called to serve. Why could we not assume that we would attract the best and the brightest at to head institutions called by service? Right now, as I see it, our UVM is split between 2 paths, and it has a moment. Will it pursue the corporate for-profit at any cost path, or will it choose a path of community, one that supports faculty, staff, students, and the broader state of Vermont? That is the path I hope we will choose. That is the path that I believe any moral institution of higher education must choose, a path of community. And I'm proud to stand here in support of my friends and allies asking for a similar path. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris, for those remarks and for your work in the legislature towards more equitability in pay in Vermont. Our next speaker is Cameron Bauserman, UVM student.
Hi, everyone. By mid-May, I will have graduated from UVM for the second time in roughly a year. And something funny happens when you graduate from a school. People come out of the woodwork to ask you if you think it would be a good fit for them. And these days, my answer is no, especially if they are a person of color. Let me tell you why. When a student asks about UVM, instead of thinking about how the English department has supported me and the opportunities I've had, I remembered the bitter fight with UVM administration to fly the Black Lives Matter flag high and proud over the Davis Student Center last year. They said no again and again. When a student asks me if they should come to UVM, instead of thinking about my first year TAP course and how interesting and engaging it was, I think of my sophomore year when those "it's okay to be white" stickers popped up all over campus. Now, the university was swift to condemn these stickers at the time, but this was lip service. Recently, Aaron Kinsvater, a professor in the College of Education and Social Services, posted a video to YouTube detailing the discrimination he has experienced as a result of his whiteness. The thesis of his video is that it is, quote, okay to be white. His argument is full of logical fallacies and inconsistencies, but at its core, the rhetoric he employs is racist, deeply so. And the university refuses to discipline him, citing free speech. To put this into context, I remember comforting my friend as she sobbed because the university was threatening to expel her over her role in the Waterman takeover, which was a movement centered around BIPOC rights and protections at this university. These student leaders were charged with violation of our common ground, their free speech deemed illegitimate and disruptive. This is deeply disturbing because while students were silenced for attempting to exercise their free speech and advocate for their rights, Kinsvater is given a free pass. Kinsvater, who is also an educator, which means his white supremacist values can find a toehold with his students who are themselves future educators. This allows a proliferation of his harmful racial rhetoric. Despite calls from the student community to discipline Kinsvater, the university administration has held firm, closing ranks around a man who, in the comments on his video, has encouraged violence against the very students he has employed to educate. When a prospective student asks me about UVM, instead of thinking about how much I learned working as a tutor in the UVM Writing Center, I remember being terrified to take a diversity class because I knew I would have to sit through at least one student and possibly the professor invalidating my existence, a trauma that frankly I didn't want to be subjected to. I got lucky with the diversity class I ended up in, but had my professor been one like Kinsvater, I would have transferred. I wish I could in good conscience recommend this school. But when students ask me if they should come to UVM, I remember how time and time again, the university has protected white supremacy over the humanity of its BIPOC students, how it has gutted or eliminated cultural programs, how it prioritizes profit over the interests of its community. So I tell these prospective students that the University of Vermont is a primarily white institution built on stolen Abenaki land, that the administration's commitment to diversity has never been anything more than lip service and a marketing ploy, as indicated by the double standard they invoke on matters of race. I tell these students to look elsewhere if they don't want to live in fear that their programs will be eliminated. I tell them that this is a place that loves to use BIPOC in their marketing materials, but that those students don't matter much outside glossy pictures and awards ceremonies. I wish I could sing the praises of this school, but I can't right now. And I rest the blame for this squarely on UVM administration. Through their racial negligence, UVM admin has managed to diminish the pride I should have in this school, a place I love so dearly I chose to stick around for both my undergraduate and graduate education. As a Black woman, I have no confidence in the UVM administration and President Garamella, and I condemn them for refusing to discipline Aaron Kinsvater, who is a clear and present threat to BIPOC safety and security on this campus. Thank you.
Thank you, Cameron. It's been an honor to know you and work with you as a student and as a citizen. Before introducing our next speaker, we wanted to share another issue that is the subject of ongoing media coverage and lawsuits. When president of Purdue University, President Garamella had oversight of a 2017 residential dietary study, Camp Dash. The camp was closed for multiple violations of human research ethics protocols, including reports of at least 30 incidents of threats, violence, or sexual abuse of children. In his interview with UVM in 2019, in response to questions about Camp Dash, Garamella said he, quote, acted as decisively and quickly as he could. A BBC documentary on the subject found that the administration knew of the abuse more than 3 weeks before the camp was finally closed. This story calls for more investigation and has added to concerns about the administration's stewardship of the university. Our next speaker is Chrysanthemum Harrell, who is a senior in political science and psychology. Chris.
Thank you, Helen. Hi, my name is Chrysanthemum Harrell. I am a senior who is set to graduate in the fall, and I'm a member of the leadership team of the UVM Union of Students, the UVM Mutual Aid, and Sunrise Movement Burlington, and I use they and she pronouns. Thank you to everyone who helped put this event together. I am really honored to be able to participate. and speak about why the undergraduate student body is so strong in our support of the No Confidence campaign. These are very difficult, confusing, and stressful times for an undergraduate student at the University of Vermont, and for marginalized communities on campus. These difficulties are heightened and made unbearably visible by the inaction and bad action of President Garamella and the rest of the UVM administration. The white supremacist views espoused by Aaron Kinsvater sent a shockwave around campus when it revealed how little the current administration cares to make sure that their students of color feel safe, protected, and valued on campus. Students are righteously angry that their mental well-being is being sacrificed for the sake of UVM's media image and profit line. And this is not the only mental health catastrophe that is occurring in our community. All across campus, students are feeling isolated, overworked, and burnt out. The lack of meaningful breaks built into the semester, combined with the isolation made necessary by COVID-19, have created a real crisis. From the preliminary results of UVM Mutual Aid, a community organization and project of the UVM Union of Students, we can see that the most requested mutual aid service was access to mental health care and resources among the student body. Unfortunately, the current CAP system is failing to meet students' needs during this time, and action is desperately needed to meet these needs. But the administration has not listened to calls from both the UVM Union of Students or data and reporting by the Vermont Cynic that this is a problem. It has also not listened to the student cry for more comprehensive and effective COVID safety measures. Spread continues around campus at rates that we have not seen so far during the course of the pandemic. And this week we learned that the highly infectious UK variant has made its way into the campus population. Yet, nothing has changed about the university's COVID response. When they doubled the testing requirements for students, they did not double testing capacity. They merely created another health hazard by forcing students into overcrowded testing lines that have taken over an hour at a time to get through and have gone viral on the internet for their silliness. The university has many resources at its disposal to create better mental health care systems, more socially distant activity spaces, such as the ice rink in front of Harris Millis, increase testing or shut down unnecessary in-person activities, but it does not. Instead, the only mitigation strategy that has been meaningfully tried on campus is the first offense suspension policy on students. While we all agree that there have been unacceptable behavior on the part of some students, which not only endangers the student community, but everyone else in Burlington, this strategy has created a clear tiered effect on the student body and has not lowered the case counts. Rich, affluent students can be suspended with little consequence to themselves or their families. They can return in the fall with their lives largely unchanged. But for poor and working class students, being forced to pay back $25,000 and losing your scholarship can alter the course of their entire lives. A slap on the wrist for some and a life sentence for others is not an equitable way to run a university discipline system. We are glad to see that this type of discipline is being rolled back by campus, but this type of discipline is still occurring and students are still in fear on campus. I have largely covered concerns present in the undergraduate community because that is who I am here to represent, but I want to emphasize as well the solidarity between the student body and the faculty and staff at UVM. The cuts threaten the quality of our education and the lives of the professors who have created a home for us, expanded our worldview, and invested in our futures. We support you because we know that you support us. I have talked to many freshmen who feel betrayed and lied to. They see the majors that they have came here for gutted and eliminated. I have talked to many prospective students who have asked the UVM Union of Students, should I come to UVM? And that is a very hard question to answer because I love this school very deeply and I very much love this community, but how can I in good conscience say that this university will take care of them for their 4 years here, or that they want to study will still be here by the time that they graduate? My family is from Vermont. I have 2 young cousins who are growing up in the Northeast Kingdom. UVM is the only possibility for them to get the kind of liberal arts education that they deserve in a setting that they can afford. For the sake of my family's future and the future of thousands of families across our state, these cuts must be stopped and Garamella must resign. With that, I would like to make known the UVM Union of Students' no confidence in Garamella, joining the thousands who've already supported this campaign, and thank the rest of you for participating in today's event.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you for that announcement of that statement of solidarity. Before we get to our last speaker, Dr. Nicole Alexander-Floyd, who's joining us from Rutgers University, I want to stress that we all understand that restrictions on faculty expression must be approached with extreme caution, even when that expression might be harmful. But this administration has rebuked faculty for speaking out against proposed cuts and threatened them with discipline, while faculty making violent and threatening speech have not been rebuked or even counseled. And this is a hypocrisy that cannot be justified. And with that, I want to thank Dr. Floyd, Alexander-Floyd, for joining us and turn the floor to her.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Nicole. Could you also start your video?
It's telling me that I can't do that because the host has disabled it.
Okay, I'm sure somebody's working on that. Apologies.
Okay, no problem. I'll just go ahead and get going. That's okay?
Yes, please do.
All right. Once again, my name is Nicole Alexander-Floyd, and I am an associate professor of political science and a proud member of the executive council of Rutgers AAUP AFT. And I am delighted to have an opportunity to be here this afternoon to weigh in about the issue of academic freedom and the UVM crisis of values as it relates to academic freedom. Simply put, academic freedom is the lifeblood of higher education. It's the lifeblood of higher education because it supplies the context for ingenuity and the development of research and teaching, free of political constraint and interest. It's also the lifeblood of higher education because higher education requires the development and protection of a marketplace of ideas. And we cannot have academic freedom only extended to the classroom or the lab, but academic freedom extends to expressions regarding institutional matters as well. In fact, academic freedom is critical because faculty are well positioned to comment on issues of public concern. Professors ideally work to advance a just society. And in order to do that, they have to have the freedom to contest ideas and influence the hearts and minds of students, other members of the academic community, and the general public. Importantly, academic freedom is consistent with general free speech protections, of which it is a subset. So, as has been previously mentioned, academic freedom, free speech, of course, has to be extended to even oppositional speech. Even hyperbolic speech is protected. However, the basis of free speech requires that we have an opportunity not only for speech, but counter speech. So it is unacceptable to allow "it's okay to be white" stickers, but not allow Black Lives Matter flags or other speech supportive of social justice. It is unacceptable to allow professors to spout hate speech on the one hand, but to discipline professors who raise questions about the institution and its priorities. In fact, raising questions about how the institution spends money, sets the course of the curriculum, responds to issues of the day, that is the very stuff that is the responsibility, not just an option, but the responsibility of those of us who are privileged to be academics. So Vermont has given us so much. Vermont has helped us to think about community, to think of us, not me in terms of a mentality. Vermont can lead the way in supporting the appropriate values at UVM consistent with its mission and values. Academic freedom is one of those critical values. It is the lifeblood of higher education. And because it is being threatened at UVM, the vote of no confidence is something that all who are concerned can surely support.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alexander Floyd, for your contribution and for joining us from Rutgers. We greatly appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. In a moment, we will be opening up for questions and answers now. If you would like to speak and you're in the Zoom meeting, you can start your camera and we will call on you. And then questions are also coming through from the YouTube chat. So if you have a question, please indicate.
Ike, go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify, I felt like I heard from faculty members and students that there's talk from faculty in the school to not openly talk about these issues in the UVM community and campus. I just want to clarify, is this true? And then what is that exactly being said and by who?
Megan, would you like to address that?
Yes. As a member of the working group, I have a colleague, Nancy Welch, who is also a very active member in this working group. And she wrote 2 informational emails, one to her colleagues in her department and a second one to faculty who belong to a union listserv. And it was, those emails found their way back to the administration, and she was called in to by the dean into a meeting in order to discuss how these emails were an infraction. And that she was not to exhort colleagues. And she published these emails. I read them. There was no exhortation in those emails. There was an opinion, but it certainly, to my mind, did not rise to any alarming level in which I would think it would be appropriate for an administrator. And I do not believe that one administrator was acting alone. To intervene and to make an example of her in order to, I believe, silence other faculty from expressing their concerns and their views.
I see Nancy herself is in this meeting. Did you want to add anything to that?
Yes, I mean, I think that as Megan, as Professor Emery explained, I was singled out in order to be an example, and the claims that were made that that these emails that were sharing information, if you're interested, please take a look at the petition, read it, consider signing it, consider sharing it with students, former students, friends, and neighbors. These are things that faculty have routinely done. People who were involved in the divestment from fossil fuels campaign 2 years ago when we were fighting to save the job of classics senior lecturer Brian Walsh. We have used petitions, and we have talked with students or had students volunteer to make announcements in class to, to talk about these conditions on our campus. I think two things that were particularly appalling to me. One is that the administration tried to claim that I did not have the right to union representation in this meeting, and I did. Any faculty, any staff person, even if you're not unionized, has Weingarten rights. So if you are being called in about some aspect of your behavior, you have the right to have a representative in that meeting with you. The second thing that I thought was so alarming was that I was threatened with the suspension of my UVM email, which would make it impossible for me to do my job in a pandemic. These threats, I do not, I'm not listening to them. I don't think that any faculty member should listen to them because they don't actually have the right. The American Association of University Professors is very clear on the rights of faculty to use electronic communications, including their university email address, to organize together on behalf and in defense of their working conditions. And so it was a threat, and it's particularly appalling to me that in the same 24-hour period that this dean called me in for this pre-disciplinary meeting, the same dean also sent out an email to the faculty about Professor Kinswater saying that we all share the value of free expression. So free expression for somebody whose social media comments have made people on campus feel threatened, but an attempt to muzzle faculty who are speaking critically about these cuts.
I'm not seeing any other questions at the moment. I would just also add to that this is very absurd that a dean would express concern that faculty organizing to resist harmful cuts are, as he told Nancy, threatening our enrollment and retention of students. This is like accusing the person calling 911 of arson, right? We are trying to prevent the university from doing clear and present harm to itself through these already highly publicized cuts, which have not fully taken place. We are doing the university and our entire community a service by trying to organize against this to protect the university from its own administration.
Nicole, please come in.
Yes, I would just like to piggyback on the previous comments to underscore that this approach that we see happening at UVM is unfortunately happening across the country, where universities and colleges are really trying to shift the priorities of our institutions away from education and toward really corporate values. And so we have a lot at stake here in the pushback in the 911 call. I love that analogy because it is an appropriate one. It is an emergency situation. When we find ourselves with institutions who are basically utilizing a crisis, right, to have some form of shock doctrine, if you will, who have resources and are doing what really are performative types of cuts that are not only unnecessary, but really are giving maximum pain for really no gain. That's something that we have to take notice of. And it is something that is so critical. It should be of concern to everyone in the state, because this is an important institution. It has an important legacy, and this fight is really for the soul of the institution, and as it is at many of our institutions, Rutgers included.
And we have two questions in the YouTube chat. I could read those out now, or we can see if there are any more questions from people in the Zoom room.
I would say read them out.
Okay, so the first is, are higher ed administrations like UVM's beyond reform, and what do faculty and staff feel about restructuring higher education into a more worker cooperative model, such as Mondragon University? And then I think related to that is a question about how it is that UVM could even come to have a president who bears responsibility for such a breach of ethics as and trust as as in the case of Camp Dash at Purdue.
May I handle a piece of that?
Please.
Okay, that was the two huge questions, but I just wanted to say that we are concerned about the type of administration structure that we have here at UVM. And one of UA's initiatives is to have a bill introduced into the Vermont House and Senate to reconfigure the Board of Trustees and include in that board both faculty and staff members. Obviously, this is a tough time to get a bill moving anywhere. It has been introduced into the House, and there is a bill number by Representative Selena Colburn and a number of co-signers. We're still also working on the Senate, but yes, I think that is very well taken, that bigger change than just one or two people, I believe, needs to occur.
I can speak briefly to the question, how can it be that President Garamella was hired after being Vice President for Research and overseeing inadequately and inappropriately overseeing the ethics violations of this study? I think the short answer is insufficient vetting by the university's Board of Trustees and inappropriate priorities of the board. As many people will remember, when President Garamella was hired, he was the sole finalist. And when he came to campus to meet the community and address questions, he had already been offered the job by the Board of Trustees. This had never happened before in modern history, that the university has hired a president who had not beforehand come to campus for public meetings with students, faculty, and staff. Even so, at his question and answer session, there were faculty and students who asked him about his role overseeing the Camp Dash study, which is where we have the quote that he said that his administration acted as quickly as possible, which is clearly not true. This has been exposed not only in a BBC documentary, but in Purdue University's own self-commissioned, self-approved report that they undertook after the camp was closed. From all of this evidence, it was already known and knowable when President Garamella was hired that he had in fact waited at least 3 weeks from his first knowledge of these shocking incidents before the camp was finally closed. How this could happen then is simply, as I said, that the Board of Trustees either has the wrong priorities and was attracted to President Garamella's record of attracting corporate sponsorship for university programs, or that they were simply rushed and failed to take due diligence and listen to faculty and other campus input that would have told them of this deal-breaking problem with our president. Megan?
Do we have time? If I could just jump in. I just wanted to say that we can certainly talk about our viewpoint as faculty members because we are very close to it and it's our perspective. But I think it's really important to hear what the students have to say. And that BBC video about Camp Dash, it just brought back to me what we learned last summer about our international students who were given emergency housing and their heating wasn't working for weeks. And these students were sleeping on the roofs of dorms. And no one was answering the phone. It took days to get a response to emails. Same thing with the Black Lives Matter flag. First, they took it down and they said that it would be put up in the Mosaic Center, and then they made it sound like an honor. But for our students, it was putting in a closet something that had to be shown with pride, that we believe that you have a place here on our campus. And the Senate had to revisit this with the Student Government Association. And they passed a resolution just a week ago, Monday. But the administration insisted on blackout dates when that flag could not be flown. Now, what does that mean? That there are certain days that this flag cannot be flown? There are things that just boggle the mind. And I think that we have to listen to our students who are sharing something that they are seeing, experiencing, and that is not sitting well with them. They are my first priority as a faculty member.
Do we have any other questions?
We do have a couple more questions in the chat. So one I'll just answer briefly, which is how many people have signed the change.org/Garamella no confidence petition. And as of this morning, it was nearly 3,000, so more than 2,900 signatures. Somebody else has asked what faculty, staff, students, and alums, people around the state and around the country can do to work to counter these trends. And also, what is happening with the Faculty Senate, or what are other ways that faculty are organizing at a department level to make their voices heard?
Thank you. Are there people on the on our panel who would like to come in on any of those questions? Just start your video if you'd like to.
On how to make your voices heard, I really encourage people to reach out to the faculty members that you have heard today. We've certainly put out in various formats, both on UVM email, private email, as well as social media information. We have a website, uvmunited.org, I believe. We have materials that you can access through unitedacademics.org, which is our faculty union. There is always more to do. We believe very firmly in what we are doing. And it's because we care so much about what we are doing as faculty members. We want to get back to doing our jobs and not having to make sure that there's a university there so that we can do our jobs to the best of our ability. Thank you.
Thanks, Megan. Is there anybody else on the panel who'd like to come in on either of those questions?
I can mention that, the University Board of Trustees, which ultimately has to approve any significant policy or financial decisions, is composed half of members of the Vermont legislature. And these legislative trustees are also your representatives if you live here in Vermont. So I encourage you to contact your representatives and to contact the legislative members of the Board of Trustees. And I think we can put on the UVM United website, uvmunited.com, is it .org? UVM United, we can put those contact information prominently for the legislative trustees for people to contact.
It's .org.
uvmunited.org, as it should be. Thank you. As for what departments have been doing, departments are understandably slow to publicly announce opposition to a president and administration that have control over their future and are threatening the elimination of several departments. Nonetheless, the single largest college department, the English department, has unanimously passed a resolution of no confidence in the administration. The sociology department and now the romance languages and literature departments have also unanimously endorsed letters opposing the current cuts, and I think more will be on the way soon.
Yes, I'll jump in here, David. The faculty of the Department of Romance, Languages, and Cultures approved a letter that was sent this morning to the board, to the president, to the provost, and to, of course, the dean of our college. And we express in that letter that we disapprove and we express our dismay over the current atmosphere of austerity. And we also express the feeling that what is happening at UVM is devastating in quite some detail.
Yes, and as I said, all of these department letters so far have been unanimously endorsed by their faculty. And anybody who's ever done anything in academia will know how remarkable it is to get a room full, let alone a department full of professors to agree on anything.
I'll just jump in here because I know that I'm going to hear from faculty. We had a vote because this is so sensitive. Like I told you, some members were not able to bring themselves to email about this matter or to speak up about this matter. So we had a vote, and that vote represents the majority of the faculty in my department. Some people, for various reasons, were not, did not join us. And that has nothing to do, and I know personally from speaking with people, has nothing to do with the fact that they do not share the sentiment. It is simply a matter of the atmosphere that we're currently living in.
Thank you, Megan. And I want to just take this opportunity to thank all of the participants today. We have heard from students, we've heard from faculty, we have heard from alumni, we have heard from community members, we've heard from concerned educators. And the message here is that we are all people who care passionately about the University of Vermont. We are here because we want to defend the University of Vermont. We are deeply concerned about the misuse of funds and resources that we think should be invested into our students and our university. All of this event and other links will be available on the YouTube channel. And so please share and encourage people to watch and participate. The UVM United meets every week on Saturdays. Join uvm.united.org and you will find information about those meetings. Thank you everybody for being here. Stay well.
Bravo. Thank you. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.